Hey guys, how are you all? I hope you all are doing well. Today we are gonna see an amazing what if story, but before we start, it's just a humble request that if you are new here, please subscribe because it actually motivates me a lot to post more. Also, the stories on my channel are fully written by me, so if you have any suggestions for what if stories, please let me know below the comment section. Now without any further delay, let's start. What if Harry Potter was king of sorcery? Hermione, I'm in my living room, it's a nice morning so I decided to read a book, one of my favorite books by the way, it's beautiful, although I won't give details about it. Suddenly I hear a sound at my door. It's probably Ellie. I said to myself, hey Hermione, don't you want to go for a walk around there? The morning is beautiful and you can't stay here reading a stupid book, Ellie said after I opened the door. It's not a stupid book, how dare you insult my beloved book? And why do you want to go out? We could stay and make a lot of cookies with chocolates, I said later, but apparently she ignored my suggestion. Come on, I want to buy some things. But first you need to put on something else. I think I was right, because I was still in my pajamas. Fine, but I'll just accompany you, I said and then invited her in. She was still at the entrance of my house. I put on light blue jeans, with a white sweater and red jacket and immediately went with Ellie and then went for a walk. What do you want, Ellie? Do you think we will meet the boys? Ellie asks. Because we are all from the same house at Hogwarts, I mean Gryffindor obviously. Maybe. Degree no one knows that we will meet their degree, I responded to Ellie. I actually had a strange feeling, but we have to leave that behind. Ellie and I went to an ice cream shop. I told her that if she wanted to go shopping with me she had to give me everything I wanted, and she accepted. Hey Hermione, aren't those the boys? My friend said after we left that ice cream parlor, and I looked where she pointed her index finger. Yes, let's go with them, I said. I got excited, because I knew that if we were all together Ellie wouldn't take me to so many stores. No, Ellie said they are doing boy things and the two of us are doing girl things. As soon as she finished saying this she dragged me to one of the shops on that street. When we were near a store, I think I'm not even paying attention to where my best friend takes me when it comes to shoes. I saw a closet waiting for a closet. How the hell are you going to see a closet outside of one shoe store? Although they could also have shoes there, but this only. I don't think it's normal. I told Ellie to come forward, then I approached that closet and opened it. Oh my surprise, inside that closet there were only a few coats. I looked back but I didn't see anyone. The streets were empty. I didn't give it any importance and entered that mysterious closet. While I was walking among those coats I felt like a cold was coming to my feet. I ended up tripping over snow. I'm not liking this. I got up from the snow-soaked ground and sked up my visit. Wow, this is definitely another world. I walked and I found a beautiful street lamp. But then I heard a noise so I decided to hide behind one of those trees full of snow. Already hidden and prepared for what could come out. I closed my eyes tightly and heard some voices, because about 4 children appeared. For what? At least that means I'm not alone in this strange world. The oldest of the 4 children caught my attention, or I think he is the oldest. He is a boy with blonde hair, a little tall and I think he has blue eyes. He must be about 15 or 16 years old. Then there is a girl with black hair. Not as tall, at least my size, and with blue eyes, like 15 years old. She is beautiful. There is also another boy. This one seems smaller. His hair is black like the first girl, only this boy does not have blue eyes like the other two. This one is about 12 around there, and lastly the youngest, a girl of about 9 years old, with blue eyes and brown and reddish hair at the same time. The girl is very happy, or so I think, because in the way she speaks you can see excitement and happiness. I got a little closer to see them better but I tripped over a branch and ended up falling right where there was a stone which caused a blow to my head. The 4 young people were scared but ran to help me, or so I think, because before I closed my eyes I could see and hear the littlest one next to me asking me if I was okay. Also the blonde boy and the other girl approaching, but at that same moment I was unconscious. Hermione. Slowly I opened my eyes. I heard voices, and when I opened my eyes completely I realized that I was no longer in the snow, but on a sofa. Or so I think. From afar I see the 4 children, 3 on a table and 1 on some stairs, I think. They seemed very entertained talking, but with whom? Wait, those aren't beavers talking. I mean, animals talking. I'm not liking it. Hey, it looks like the girl woke up, the youngest said to her older brother, who apparently noticed that I was already sitting on that couch. Hey, are you okay? The little girl asked me. Yes, I think so, I said, touching my head, feeling a bandage. Okay, what's happening? Yes, I know I tripped over something, I didn't even realize. I realize that it is, but the case now is that it was bleeding. Too many questions wander in my head, I have many doubts. Are you better, dear? Said a beaver. I guess it's a female. Don't worry, this drink will help you heal faster, she finished, handing me a small jug with some type of tea inside. At first I hesitated to drink it, but then I agreed. Its taste was sweet and bitter at the same time, something strange, right? Hey, if it doesn't bother you, can we know your name? Said the oldest of the children. Yes, of course, sorry, Hermione called me, I said, getting up from that sofa, walking to the table where 3 of them were sitting, because I felt much better. Hermione Granger. Nice to meet you, I'm Peter Pevensie, said the older boy. This is Susan Pevensie, he said, pointing at the girl with black hair and blue eyes. This is Edmund Pevensie, he said, pointing with his head at the boy with black hair. Jet, and this is Lucy Pevensie, he said, turning to look at the youngest, and as you see, you are brothers, I said, interrupting the cute boy. Wait, cute boy. What's going through my head? Yes, that's right, and they are Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, the older boy said later. By the way, how old are you? If the question doesn't bother you, of course, the oldest of the brothers said finally. Oh, of course it doesn't bother me, and I'm 16, I said, because to be honest it didn't bother me, rather it scared me, and you end up asking. I'm 16 too, Susan is 15, Edmund is 12 and Lucy is 9, said Peter. By the way, how did you get here? The boy asks me. Peter, aren't you tired of asking this girl questions? Said the boy. Smaller, Edmund the first think is his name, he's going to get fed up with you, he finished laughing but remaining silent once and returning to that cold and bitter look. Peter just decides to roll his eyes, surely he doesn't want to make the other boy feel bad. Becca. Use in his eyes, you could see that if he said something to him, it wouldn't be anything good. No, don't worry, it's a long story, I said after Edmund spoke. How can we help Mr. Tumnus? Said little Lucy, she is so cute. I felt very sorry for the youngest of the siblings, even though she didn't even. I don't even know who this Tumnus guy is, I'm sure he's an uncle or a friend, no idea. Well, Eve, rye creature that enters that castle never leaves, or rather few have left, said Mr. Beaver. But there is hope, honey, right, Beaver, Mrs. Beaver said before Mr. Beaver ended up spitting something, I think it was tea. But of course there is hope, Aslan is on his way. Who the hell is Aslan? Aslan? Edmund asked. Ahahaha, who is Aslan? He asks, don't you know who he is? How funny, Mr. Beaver said, laughing and changing his face to a. It would be after seeing our reaction. Why were they like, what's he got? Or, really, who is Aslan? You really don't know who Aslan is, said Mr. Beaver, and then we shook our heads. Well, if they don't know, I think you should tell him, dear, said Mrs. Beaver. He is the great lion, the true king of Narnia, and he is waiting for you at the stone table, Mr. Beaver told us. Waiting for us, said the eldest of the Pevensie brothers. Don't you know about the prophecy? Mr. Beaver asked us, and we all denied it again. The prophecy says the 2 sons of Adam and 3 daughters of Eve will save Narnia with Aslan, and that one of Eve's daughters will be a sorceress, said Mr. Beaver. So about the sorceress, it would surely be me, that has to be it. And when the son of Adam is on that throne reigning in Cair Paravel, all evil in Narnia will be gone, and with the sorceress at his side everything will improve. Furthermore, everything that is happening is because of you, Mr. Beaver's term for speaking. Are you blaming us? Susan asks. No, that's just that the arrest of Mr. Tumnus, the royal guard, the arrival of Aslan, that is part of the prophecy, answered Mr. Beaver to the eldest girl of the brothers. I'm sorry, but we didn't leave one war to get into another, Peter told Mr. Beaver, getting up from the table and grabbing the coats so his sisters could do the same. Let's go, Ed. Ed, Peter said to Edmund, but apparently he was no longer there, and if that wasn't enough, the door was open. Did he escape? I said, but it seems that no one paid attention to me, only Mrs. Beaver looked at me. He killed him, Peter said before leaving to look for Edmund. After realizing that Edmund escaped, we went out to look for him, or rather we followed him since we could see him from a little distance away. I also realized that it was already night, obviously of course, although when I arrived it was daytime. Edmund, little Lucy said, watching how her brother walked to a castle made of ice. I suppose it belongs to that white witch who calls herself Queen of Narnia. I think that's what this place is called. No, silence, said Mr. Beaver. We have to go get him, Peter said, determined to go find his brother. Don't they understand it? Asks Mr. Beaver. She wants them all to kill them, and thus the prophecy cannot be fulfilled. Mr. Beaver finished. If I think about it, she is right, because if that lady kills us, the prophecy is not fulfilled. She will reign in Narnia. Aslan will be disappointed, and even worse, she can do something to him. At that moment we saw a group of wolves leaving that castle, and Mr. Beaver decided that we should urgently return to Mrs. Beaver and escape to Aslan's camp. As they all entered the Beaver's house, Mrs. Beaver put on a confused face, but then Mr. Beaver told her everything. We have to go now, Mr. Beaver said, urging his wife. If we don't leave now, the wolves will catch us, added the eldest of the Pevensie brothers. If there is not enough food, Beaver will be very hungry and will be very angry. Mrs. Beaver defended herself. But I'm already angry, dear, said Mr. Beaver, already a little enraged. Do you think we should bring jam? Susan asked. Not to be disrespectful, but if you are going to invite the wolves along with the White Witch and her followers, it's a great idea to bring the jam, Susan, I said, almost interrupting the girl. They are already here, little Lucy said, making us all react. Let's go this way. This will take us to my friend the badger's house. Mr. Beaver guided us, taking us to a type of path that resembled a cave. I thought I was arriving at your mother's house, honey, Mrs. Beaver said to her husband. Well, there were some changes, dear, Mr. Beaver finished, before his wife scolded him. While we were running down that path, Lucy trips over a rock and she falls to the ground. I helped her get up because that was who the girl was with. They're here, said the youngest of the siblings, listening to the howls of the wolves and getting up from the ground. Follow me, we are arriving, Mr. Beaver said, before reaching a kind of wall. Oh no, and now? I said, worried seeing that there was no longer a path. And the map? Asks Mrs. Beaver. Of so many things you carry in that basket, the map couldn't fit, Mr. Beaver told Mrs. Beaver. And from one moment to the next, the howls of the wolves were heard too close, and at that moment Mr. Beaver decided to dig until he reached his friend's house. After Mr. Beaver finished digging and made another path, since Mr. Badger's house was only a kilometer or less away, everyone. We went down that path with Peter being the first, of course after Mr. Beaver, followed by Susan, then Mrs. Beaver, and lastly Lucy and me. Once everyone was outside, Peter and Mr. Beaver proceeded to carry a barrel to that road so that the wolves could not pass, or at least hold them for a while. Lucy was walking backwards, scared and tripping over a stone figure. But what is this? When my brothers and that girl were distracted, I ran away from the house of those animals. I hope they didn't notice that. So I went straight to the Queen's castle. When I entered that dark and icy castle, I walked a little and entered a type of room with statues. They looked like super strange but funny stones. Then I heard something approaching, or rather someone. What are you doing here, intruder? A wolf asked, appearing through an entrance to another room, almost attacking me. I'm looking for the Queen of Narnia, I mentioned that wolf. Follow me, Your Majesty, the wolf finished. I like that nickname, although the way he said it is not very good. That animal took me to the Queen's throne and I decided to sit in that chair. Then the Queen arrives and asks me, "Are you comfortable?" she asked. "Yes," I say, smiling and excited. "Apparently you didn't bring me what I asked for," the Queen said, a little angry. "Well, actually, I did bring them," I said, defending myself. Well, I don't see them, said the Queen, I'm already getting scared. They are in Mr. Beaver's house. I said, now can I eat more sweets? I asked the woman. Yes dear, when we find your brothers, and by the way, did you see another girl? The Queen asks me. I think she is talking about the girl who we met today. Yeah. I told him. Well, now you can take him to the cell. The woman said. Wait, cell? That? I said, very scared. Mogrim, find the other 4 children and bring them here. The Queen said to the wolf, or better yet, kill them once and for all. The Queen, or rather the witch, finished. What have I done? Pa. Hermione. OWW, Mr. Beaver said after recognizing who those stone figures were. Oh honey, it's a badger, Mrs. Beaver said, trying to comfort her husband. That's what happens when you challenge the Queen, said a voice behind us, making us scared, and Mr. Beaver standing in front of everyone. Back, traitor, Mr. Beaver said to a fox. Don't worry, I'm not one of the bad guys, said the fox. The little fox is certainly very pretty, he seems cute, and I don't think he's bad. Yes, well, you don't seem like it, Mr. Beaver said to the fox, pushing everyone back. Triple A, bad family traits, the fox responded, somewhat disappointed. In that moment you can hear how they are moving that barrel. The one that blocked the way for the wolves, and the fox decided that we should climb a tree so that the wolves won't catch us. The barrel can no longer stand due to the strength of the wolves and flies to the side. Good morning, my gentlemen. Did you miss something? Said the fox, trying to distract the wolves. Leave your formalities and tell me where the humans are. Mogrim, the leader of the wolves, told him. Humans? In Narnia? Said the fox, trying to act as if he didn't know anything. At that moment a wolf grabs the fox by the neck, hurting him and making him scream in pain. At that same moment Lucy almost screams, and I say almost since Peter covers her mouth so they don't catch us. Good. They went north, the fox lied. Let him go. Although your life would be worth nothing. Let's go north, now. Mogrim said to his companions, believing the poor fox's lie. After checking to see if the wolves had completely left, we all climbed down from that tree. Well, we'll spend the night here, I said quickly when I saw the fox in a terrible state. Let's make a bonfire here and we'll help the fox. I ended up sending the 2 older Pevensies to help Mr. Beaver, Lucy and Mrs. Beaver curing the fox, and finally me making dinner. But, what will we do tomorrow? The sun is already rising and I didn't sleep at all. Sleeping away from home gives me nightmares. And I don't know how I'm going to bear not falling asleep on the way. Wake up so early? Peter asked me, scaring me a little since I had moved a little away from the already extinguished bonfire and the boys. Yes, well, it wasn't that I had the best night, so to speak, I told him, standing up from the snow. Ha, me neither. Thinking about what they will do to my brother scares me. You know, we are not very close, but he worries me. Peter said with a slightly sad face. Don't worry, we'll save him, you'll see, along with Aslan and his army. We will defeat the White Witch, or so I hope, I said, trying to cheer him up. The problem is that I don't want to be in a war. We barely left our house for that reason, Peter said, somewhat more cheerful. I must take away that sadness. Well, I understand. We better go with the others, I proposed. Getting up from my seat ready to start walking back to the others, but Peter grabbed my arm. Did something happen? I asked him, looking into his eyes. Oh God. Those blue eyes are beautiful. So I quickly looked away at a very pretty tree indeed. Let the sarcasm be noted. I had no doubt that he was making fun of me, I'm sure, and I'm totally red. Thank you. He told me thank you, and now I want to know why. May I know why? I asked him. Because you have worried about a person you only knew for a few minutes, Peter told me. He is so sweet. Why the hell am I thinking that? You don't have to thank me for something like that, I told him, smiling. Well, we have to go with the others. I ended up saying this to start walking. Well, we have to go, said Mr. Beaver. Pa. Edmund, I'm in a cell, with super bad food and very cold. Beautiful, right? Well, this is the consequence of giving up your brothers for some sweets. Are you Lucius' brother? Said a voice next to my cell. I looked and it was a fawn. Yes, how did you know? I asked him. I know who he is. They have the same nose. That fawn told me before they opened my cell. Comfortable Edmund. Do you know why you are here? The witch tells me, entering with her shitty dwarf. I never liked him. You are here for not bringing. Your brothers are the girl, for disobeying me, the witch finished telling me. But they are here. They are going to Aslan's camp. He is waiting for them at the stone table, I said. Aslan. Camp. Stone table. The witch tells me, somewhat thoughtful and surprised at the same time. Don't believe what he says, Your Majesty. He is a child and he hasn't been here for a long time, Mr. Tumnus says, somewhat scared. Free him. The witch ordered her dwarf to free Mr. Tumnus. But the dwarf drags him to her. Look why you are here, she said to the fawn, almost choking him. Take it, it won't help me at all, he ordered his dwarf. And you will come with me, she said after looking at me. Pav. Peter. We are on our way, until at one point we stop to appreciate the view, or so I think. It's not too far. Hermione asks, I'm even liking the way she talks. I don't know what's wrong with me. Not so much, you just have to cross the frozen river, Mr. Beaver replied. As its name says, it has been frozen for 100 years and we have to. Hurry up, Mrs. Castor said, walking again with her husband, so we followed him. Pav. Edmund. The dwarf took me out of that cell, taking me to the room where all those stone statues are, and in that I see Mr. Tumnus. What have I done? What are you waiting for, son of Adam? The witch asks me next to her sleigh, and now what do you plan to do? We are now near the frozen river, walking through a long stretch of snow, with Mrs. and Mr. Beaver leading the small group. Quickly humans, I'm getting old, Mr. Beaver said, hurrying us along. If you say that again, I'm going to have to make a furry beaver hat, said Peter. Already a little tired of Mr. Beaver and carrying Lucy on his back. Quick, what's happening, Mr. Castor said again. He's enjoying being the one in charge, Lucy said, also tired. I agree with Lucy, I said, giving the youngest a smile. No, she is behind, Mrs. Beaver said, turning back like us. Run, run, said Mr. Beaver. And yes, behind us you could see a sleigh with some reindeer. This made me remember Santa Claus. Peter puts Lucy off his back so he can run more easily. We ran so fast that at one point I almost tripped over my own feet until we stopped to enter a small cave. Come in, that way, Mr. Beaver said, entering last. Come on, come in, Peter told me. Now all of us inside saw a shadow of someone above the small cave, and out of fear, or so I think, Peter wraps his hand in mine, giving it a strong squeeze. Then we see that shadow move away a little, so I said. Has he left? Lucy said in a whisper. I'm going to check if. I didn't finish the sentence since Peter interrupted me. You're crazy, I'll do better, Peter said, about to leave, but Mr. Beaver stops him. No, if any of you die you won't help Narnia. I'll go better, said Mr. Beaver. Most leaving the small cave and stopping when the Lady Beaver says, neither you, my darling, Mrs. Beaver said. Ah, they are so cute. Thank you, dear, Mr. Beaver said, coming out of the cave. There is no danger, come out, Mr. Beaver said, appearing out of nowhere, causing a scare to everyone and much more to Lucy. I hope they behaved well because someone came to see them, Mr. Beaver said to finish. We all got up and left that small cave. Even with Peter's hand intertwined with mine, we saw in front of us a man with very long white beard and dressed in red. Jaw 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 jaw. The man laughs. I think I know who he is. Merry Christmas, sir, Lucy says, approaching the man dressed in red with a big smile. Yes, Lucy is, since you arrived, said that man. Hey, I've endured a lot since I arrived, but this, Susan said before Peter interrupted her, saying. We thought it was the witch, Peter said, throwing a dirty look at Susan and then diverting it to the man. Yes, I apologize for that, but I can say that I drive one of these before her, said the man in the red suit, turning to look at his sleigh. I thought there was no Christmas in Narnia, Susan said later. No, many years ago. But the hope that your majesties have offered has finally weakened the witch's power, he said, and I turned my gaze towards the beavers who looked very excited. But I think this will still help you, the man said again. Turning to his sled, to be more specific, to a super large bag and taking it out of it and then laughing. Gifts, Lucy said excitedly. Wait a minute, gifts. I mean he is really. Lucy approaches Santa Claus before the man shows her a type of jar with something red inside. The juice of the fire flower, just 1 drop is enough to heal any wound, and I hope you never have to use this, said the Lord. Handing Lucy the flask and then a dagger. Thank you sir, but I think I can be very brave, Lucy said. I really like this girl. I bet so. Battles are disgusting. He-Man ended up telling Lucy to go back and look for something in her bag. Susan. The man called Susan after taking out a bow and arrows. This bow never fails if you have confidence in it, the man said. Handing the bow and arrows to the girl. I thought battles were something disgusting, Susan said. Ha 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 ha. Susan's man laughs, and although you have no problem making them listen to you. Blow this and wherever you are you will receive support, said Santa after giving him a horn. Thank you, chirmed Susan. Peter, the time to use this may come soon, the man said, handing him a beautiful sword and a shield. Thank you sir, Peter said after unsheathing his sword and smiling. And lastly, Hermione, the man said, turning to his bag again. To pull out a wand and a sword smaller than Peter's, so I walked over. This is for you and I think you already know how to use it, Santa told me smiling. But remember to use it wisely and use the sword when you don't have the wand within your reach. Thank you so much, I tell the man taking a few steps back. Remember, these are tools, not toys, you must use them wisely. Now I must go, winter is almost over and things accumulate. Hen you are away for 100 years, the man said, loading his gift bag onto his sleigh. Long live Aslan, said the man now getting on his sleigh, and Merry Christmas, said Santa Claus to leave. Merry Christmas, thank you for everything, goodbye. We all spoke almost at the same time. I told you that it existed, Lucy said to her older sister, and now that I think about it Lucy reminds me of Ellie. Oh, Ellie must be very worried about me. He said winter was coming to an end. Peter said to look at us. And that means, no more ice. Peter said to look at us and start running. We arrive at that frozen river and apparently winter is ending, because the ice was melting and the problem is that we have not crossed that river yet. Oh, we have to cross, now, I said to start walking towards the river and holding my younger sister's hand. Can't they set up a press? Lucy asks the beavers. I'm not that fast, dear, Mr. Beaver answers, a little worried. Let's go, Hermione said, grabbing Susan's hand. Wait, can't we think about it for a minute? Susan said, stopping short and getting ready. We don't have a minute, I responded, a little stressed and worried at the same time. I was trying to be realistic, Susan said, seeming a little offended. I'm sorry Susan, but maybe you wanted to be the smart girl, he said this time. Hermione, a little tired and worried, to then drag Susan for a walk. You know, I have a great feeling that I'm going to have a great friendship with this girl. And out of nowhere a howl is heard. We have to move, Hermione said again, moving faster. Edmund, I heard a howl. It's probably the wolves, and from the position I'm sitting on the witch's sleigh I can't see anything. We followed the wolves who were heading towards a river. I think they there. The witch looked at me strangely, although I don't think that woman has looked at anyone properly. Hermione, we passed through the small paths on the hill to begin walking along the frozen river, now thawing. We stopped right in front of the river so we could think carefully about what we were going to do. Peter stepped on the ice, but it broke off a little and we backed away. I'm going in front, says Mr. Castor, walking in a zigzag or something similar on the ice. If it's better, Peter and I said at the same time, and I looked into those beautiful blue eyes that made eye contact with mine. But it didn't last long as Mrs. Castor spoke. I warned you not to continue eating desserts, Mrs. Castor told her husband, somewhat worried and at the same time angry. Well, you never can. When your last dinner is going to be made, especially when you cook, Mr. Castor said, turning to look at his wife. If he doesn't. If it were a moment of worry I would be laughing at that comment. Peter approached the ice to start walking like Mr. Castor was doing and holding Lucy's hand. on the other hand, tried not to let go of Susan's hand as she began to mutter something to herself, and I dared to tell her, everything will be fine. Trust me, and she glares at me, this girl is kind of hard to understand. As we walked quickly and at the same time delicately on the ice, Lucy let out a little scream. I understand her. I appear to be relaxed, but inside there is enormous terror. Yes, Mom will find out about this, Susan said, stepping carefully over the ice, but before saying anything else, Peter interrupted her saying, Mom's not here, Peter said, turning to look at Susan and rolling his eyes. Oh no, Lucy said, looking up, watching as the wolves walked through some type of frozen waterfall to get to the other side. Run, Peter said, starting to run with Mr. Castor in front and Lucy at his side. Quickly, I said, but it was already late. The wolves had already reached the other side and were coming down the hill to reach us and surround us. Not everyone crossed the frozen waterfall because several came behind me and Susan. A wolf stopped in front of Mr. Castor. Lucy lets out another scream. Mr. Castor tried to attack the wolf with his small claws, but another wolf arrived and pounced on him to almost bite his small neck. No, Mrs. Castor shouts when she sees her husband like this. Peter. Lucy shouts again to make Peter react. Peter draws his sword pointing at another wolf. This one seems to be the boss. Put that down, boy, you're going to hurt someone, said the wolf, slowly approaching us, and then he took out my wand to turn back and pointed at the wolves that surrounded us. You two, little one, I don't want to end up killing the sorceress of Narnia, the wolf said, raising his tone on the word sorceress. Forget about me, Mr. Castor shouts into the teeth of another wolf. Peter. Go through it, Hermione, cast a spell, quick, Mr. Castor finished. Go now while you can, and your brother will go with you, said the wolf, and this time he turned me towards him and walked carefully to stand next to Peter. Wait, we should listen to what he says, Susan said, looking at Peter and then looking at me, and this made me very angry. How could I believe that they were going to let us escape from that place alive? Haha, she's very smart, the wolf said, referring to Susan, but I got closer to him, pointing my wand so that he would step back a little, and he did. Don't listen to that wolf, Hermione, you have to kill him now, said Mr. Castor, still in the claws and teeth of that other wolf. Please, this is not your war, the only thing my queen wants is for you and your friends to leave, said the wolf, walking forward, not caring about my wand this time. Just because a man in a red suit gave you a sword doesn't mean you're a hero. Put down the sword, Susan said, looking at Peter with desperation, and you, Hermione, should put away your wand. Susan finished looking at me, but I just rolled my eyes. No guys, Narnia needs you, you have to kill him now, Mr. Castor said. Who prefer children of Adam and Eve? I'm not going to wait forever, and neither will the river, said the wolf. Peter. Hermione. Little Lucy said, making us look at the frozen waterfall now thawing and its water almost starting to come out. Hold on to me, Peter shouts, stabbing his sword into a piece of ice and grabbing me by his coat. Then the waterfall thawed and the water now has more pressure. Lucy and Susan scream. Mrs. Castor is worried. Peter is scared like me, and Mr. Castor must be swimming towards us if he got rid of the wolves. Due to the pressure of the water and the current, the block of ice sinks a little, and that causes us to be completely soaked by the water, rising again to the surface, allowing us to breathe, but I see that Mrs. Castor is no longer on the ice block. I worry. Then we see Mr. Castor and Mrs. Castor swim and stay on the block of ice. Now the problem is that I don't feel Lucy next to me, so I turned around to see if she is still there, but she is no longer there. I let go of Peter's coat to swim and look for Lucy. I found her and took her to shore. I helped her up and then I went up. We walked a little and then heard some voices, or rather, shouts of exclamation. Then Lucy decided to speak. Has anyone seen my coat? She said, walking straight to where her brothers were fighting, and I think they were looking for us at the same time. I looked to the side of me and saw a small pink flower. That's good. It means that winter is ending and the spring coming. We reached the shore on that block of ice. First Susan got off it, then Mrs. Castor, and lastly, me. Lucy and Hermione were no longer on the ice block, and that scared me a lot. I turned around to watch Susan, who also turned around to say, "What did you do?" She exclaimed, very scared, but I was in shock. I can't speak, I can't move, and all because of fear and worry. "Lucy, Hermione," Susan shouts scared. I just looked everywhere. I just want to have my little sister. In front of me and that girl, the only girl that has caught my attention in all this time. "Has anyone seen my coat?" I heard a voice say behind me. I turned to see whose voice it was, and my fear and worry disappeared. "Pa, Hermione." We walked towards the two older brothers and the beavers. When we arrived with them, Peter gave the coat to Lucy, but what good is a coat? "Now, don't worry, honey, your brother is not going to let anything happen to you, Mr. Castor said to the little girl. "And I think they will no longer need those coats, Mrs. Castor said." We started walking and saw that there is very little snow. The flowers were beautiful. It is something incredible when spring arrives. We left our coats hanging on a branch because we will no longer need them, and I think we are already very close to Aslan's camp. Our clothes were also drier, as was our hair. "Pa, Edmund, we were already in that frozen river that wasn't frozen anymore, and I think that's good. That means that the witch doesn't have as much power anymore." "It's too hot," the dwarf said, almost taking off his coat. But the witch gave him a threatening look. "I'm going to be on the sleigh," he said. "Then go to the sleigh." "Your Majesty," Mogrim said, arriving with his pack of wolves but with a small fox in his teeth. "We found the traitor. He was visiting the enemy in the trembling forest," he said, and the other wolf released the poor fox. "Ah, what a pleasant surprise, last night. Why? Oh, you were a great help to my wolves," said the White Witch, walking towards the fox. "Could you help me now?" the witch told him. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," the fox said, lowering his head a little embarrassed. "Ah, flattering me is not going to help you," the White Witch told him with that annoying face she always has. "I don't want to be rude, but it wasn't said to you," the fox told him, and then looked at me. The witch looked at me, as I looked at her, but I looked away and she got closer to the fox and pointed her wand at him. "Where are the humans going?" the woman asked the fox, but he did not answer, and at that moment she raised her wand but stopped. "No, don't do it, I said. "The beaver spoke about a stone table and that Aslan has troops there," I said, to save the fox, but I think which makes it worse, because I turned to see the fox and he shook his head in disapproval. "Thank you, Edmund, it is good that these creatures know honesty. To die with it," said the witch, and then turned the little fox into stone. "No," I screamed, but it was of no use. "What have I done now?" And then the witch slapped me, then grabbed my shoulder and made her look at her. "Think which side you are on, Edmund. With me or with them?" he said, grabbing my face to make me look at the statue of the fox. A few tears spilled down my cheeks, but why do I always end up making things worse? "Go ahead, gather my subjects. If it is war that Aslan wants," he said, to turn a butterfly into stone with his wand. "War is what he will have," he said, to finish. We were entering Aslan's camp, and then we heard the sound of a horn, as if they knew we were arriving. Almost inside the camp, a thing in the shape of a woman but made of petals approaches Lucy to greet her, but my gaze diverts to Hermione. She looks so happy, at peace. I would like to get to know her more. She noticed that I was looking at her and approached me, saying, "I'm a little nervous," she told me, looking into my eyes, and I did the same. "Can I ask why?" She laughs at my question. She has a beautiful smile. "It's like the sun at dawn, that's why I love it." "Maybe you'll know later," she said, returning to Lucy. As we walked through the camp, everyone looked at us. Centaurs, fawns and many other species. "Why does everyone see us like this?" my sister Susan said. "Maybe they think your face is ugly," Lucy answered, and that made us laugh, except for Susan. "Stop getting ready, you look beautiful, Mr. Castor said to his wife when he realized that she was nervous. "We have come to see Aslan," I said, taking out my sword, and then everyone bowed. "The great lion is coming out of his tent, at a slow pace, but at the same time he seems majestic, and they're my sisters, Hermione and I bow." "Welcome, Peter, son of Adam. Welcome, Hermione, Susan and Lucy, daughters of Eve. And welcome, beavers, I thank you. But what about the human room?" Aslan said when we were all standing up again. "That's why we come, sir, to ask for your help," I responded to Aslan. We had problems on the way, Susan continued, but I interrupted her. Our brother was captured by the White Witch, I finished. Caught. How did it happen? The Great Lion asks us. He betrayed them like this. Your Majesty, Mr. Castor told him, and a centaur who was nearby said. Then he betrayed us all. The centaur said, but Aslan interrupted him. Enough, Aureus, there. Must be an explanation. Aslan told the centaur, although he would say that it was more for everyone. It was my fault, sir. I was harsh on him. I responded to Aslan, but I noticed that Hermione grabbed my hand in support. We all went. Hermione and Susan said at the same time, the former trying to smile a little. He's our brother, Lucy said, very sad. I know, little one, but that only makes his betrayal worse. Aslan responded to Lucy, saving him will not be easy. I finish by saying this. Pa. Hermione. After that talk we had with Aslan, they took us to our tents. Lucy and Susan in one, Eder in another, and me in another, but Peter's and mine are close by. When I entered my tent, I ran to what would be my bed. I am very tired, but now I can't sleep. I have to help with something. I have to find Edmund, and just before leaving my store I looked for something to wear, but I only found many dresses. I hope they are comfortable. I found a green dress, with a brown belt and slightly long green sleeves and some golden designs of branches and leaves. After putting on the dress that only reached a little below my knees, I decided to keep my hair down, and the strange thing is that it was totally fixed. I left my tent in search of Aslan to talk about my work as the Sorceress of Narnia, but on the way I see Peter on a hill, looking towards I don't know where, so I decided to go talk to him first. Hey, I said, waving as I reached the hill. Hey, I think you owe me something, he said, turning to me and smiling. You know that smile that weakens anyone and gives them so much tenderness. That they would like to have that person by their side for the rest of their life, because that's how I feel. Yes, well, it's not much that I wanted to say, but well, I'm worried because I'm afraid that something might get out of control, and to tell the truth I don't know how to handle some things well, but you think about that great lion called Aslan and you say, I have the best shield in the world. I made a pause and I started to speak again since he was just silent, and that meant, continue. I'm not going to lie, you and your brothers are one of the best things that have happened to me in this world, even though I didn't. We have known each other for a long time and I really like them. I couldn't continue talking as I felt him approach me and kiss me. Oh my Aslan, Peter Pavency Key. SSED me, and I think he already knows how I feel about him. Pa. Peter. Do you know when someone feels that need to do something, why they think that in the future they will not have the opportunity? Well, act now. I kissed her. I don't want to lose a person like her, and in all this time, she has been the only girl who has caught my attention. But I wouldn't say, attract attention, I think it's something like, I'm in love. Well, that's what I think. The kiss wasn't long at all, although she reciprocated it, and I imagine that's a good thing. I will ask Aslan to give me advice on this, thinking about it better not, because I had a talk about this with my mother. She just looked at me surprised and I looked at her nervous about her reaction. Hey, I'm sorry, it was just an impulse, I didn't finish speaking since she interrupted me. Hey, are you listening? Well, apparently not. Why the heck kisses a person on impulse? And before you say anything to me, if I liked it despite the short time in which it happened. I'll say it now, Peter, I've fallen in love with you, and I know it's strange why we've been together for such a short time, knowing each other, and I interrupted her because say this girl really talks, and I wanted to tell her the same thing, but she was faster. Okay. First, you speak very fast. Second, yes, I understood you, and third, I like you too. I blushed a little when saying this last, but we turned back as we heard a noise. Don't even think about it. I have to talk to Peter alone for a moment, dear. Hermione. Hermione was just walking down the hill, but before she left, Aslan spoke again. I'll talk to you too as soon as I'm done with Peter. The girl nodded and walked away. Did you see everything? I asked Aslan, and he nodded and said, and I heard it all, but that between you is good. Just don't waste this, Peter. She is a good girl and will be there for you whatever you need. The lion finished saying, and I looked towards a castle, a beautiful castle. Now Peter the First will change the subject. Aslan said, and I think I know what he meant. Pa. Hermione. After coming down the hill I went to get my wand to practice a little. Already leaving my tent with my wand in my hands, I hear a horn. Susan. I said to myself, starting to run towards the place where the sound came from. When I arrive I see a group of species behind Aslan, Susan and Lucy in the branches of a tree. 2 wolves and one of them facing Peter. But I was a little late, since at that same moment the wolf lunges at Peter and knocks him to the ground, and he falls too. Peter. Pavensey sisters, and I said at the same time as we went towards Peter, and thanks to Aslan he is fine, the wolf is dead. Follow him, he can take you to Edmund, Aslan said to the group while releasing the wolf that began to run to avoid being caught. The Pavensey sisters hugged the eldest and I just watched them, but the boy's gaze shifted to me, so I went over to hug him while also hugging his sisters. After a few seconds we separated from that hug and Aslan spoke. Get up, sir. Peter, terror of the wolves, Aslan said, so that Peter knelt in front of him, and a few seconds later he got up from the ground to look at his sisters with a small smile and then at me. Now go rest, Hermione, come with me, said the great lion, walking somewhere, and I was about to follow him when I feel a hand on my arm and I turn around. Shall we talk later? Peter said with a small smile, a little excited, and I nodded just like he was. Come on, Hermione, I'm important too, Aslan said, and I said goodbye to Peter with a kiss on the cheek. He was paralyzed and blushed, but this boy is so cute. Now let's see what Aslan wants to tell me. Pa. Peter, before what happened with the wolves. After Hermione left, I turned and stared at a fixed point. Not any fixed point. It was like a castle, a huge castle. That is Cair Paravel, the castle of the 5 thrones. In one of them you are going to sit, Peter, as the absolute king. Together with the great sorceress, Aslan said, and I looked at the ground before Aslan spoke again. Do you doubt the prophecy? The lion asked me. No, I answered, and then spoke again. It's just that, Aslan. The truth is I'm not who you think, I finished saying, but he interrupted me. Peter Pavensey, you lived in Finchley, and the beaver also told me that. Do you plan to make a hat with it? He said this last thing, and even with my eyes down I smiled. Peter, there is a great magic more powerful than any of us in that rules over all Narnia, differentiates what is right and what is wrong. He said this and then stopped talking for a few seconds and spoke again. And it governs our destinies, yours and mine. That's the end of it. But I couldn't even protect my family, I said. You brought them here safely, even a girl you didn't even know. He said this to talk again. Peter, I will do everything necessary to help you. But I need you to reflect on what I ask of you. Just like you, I want to save my family. Term of speaking, to look at the large camp of the Narnians. Pa. Edmund, is our dear prince uncomfortable? Said the annoying dwarf, walking towards me, since he was tied to a tree and also with his mouth tied. Do you want me to adjust your pillow? He said to try to touch my hair, but I tried to avoid it. Special treatment for the special boy. He said to walk around the tree where I am tied and appear next to me. Isn't that what you wanted? He asked, moving away a little and laughing out loud. This unfortunate man won't leave me alone. And I'm already getting tired of him, but at the same time I'm afraid. I hope Aslan and Hermione find me quickly. I know Hermione will, or I guess that's one of the things why he doesn't like the witch, that's what I heard. Pa. Susan, before the wolves arrive. After changing our clothes, Lucy and I went to a small lake to appreciate this place. You look like Mom, my little sister told me. Mom hasn't had a dress like that since before the war, I responded, looking at her somewhat sadly. We are going to bring you several, she said, smiling. All equally beautiful, she said, very excited. If we return, I said, looking at the small lake, with a sad look, and my little sister looks at the ground, erasing her smile. Don't pay too much attention to me, I said, turning to look at her to encourage her. We were having fun before, weren't we? Yes, but you became boring, he said, laughing. Oh, do you think so? I told her, and she laughed even more. I took advantage of the fact that she was a little distracted and splashed her with the river water. She did the same, and again I splashed her to find a towel. When I reached one, a wolf appeared roaring and I screamed in fright just like Lucy. Please don't try to escape, this one said, but at that same moment another one appeared. We are already tired, we would prefer to kill them now, said the other wolf. At that point he looked very wary to see what to defend myself with, and I see my horn very close, so I decide to throw the towel at one of those wolves to buy more time, look for my horn, touch it and climb the tree where the towel was along with Lucy. Hermione, after what happened. He was walking behind Aslan, trying to create a plan on how he could help. Let your mind rest. The lion tells me stopping walking. I just want to help. But leaving that aside for now, what did you want to talk to me about? I said, looking at the lion. Hermione, you will have to take care of the Pevensies, you will take care of Narnia with your magic. You will have to help the oldest of the Pevensies. You will be like his assistant, but that does not mean that you will not be a queen, you are the second in charge of taking care of Narnia. You and the eldest of the Pevensie are responsible for that, she said, settling down on the grass. Wait, are you telling me we're going to be here for a long time? Your Majesty, I do not have that great magic that you speak of, I said, sitting next to him. Little one, you will find that power, you will see, but first I need you to reflect and have a talk with Peter about this, Aslan said, looking at me. What will happen to our acquaintances? Aren't they worried about us? And what will happen later? I asked, something sad. In your world, time is different from this one, and there is a magic much more powerful than all of us that decides our destinies, Hermione, the lion told me. Well, I said, thinking about Aslan's words. Now I want you to talk to Peter about his future, and please, no children, he said. Getting up to start walking. Okay, wait, I didn't understand the last part, I said, getting up to try to walk towards him, but something stopped me. Very soon you'll understand. What he said was heard very little since he was further away. Well, then I'll have to find out, I told myself, to start walking towards the camp. This lion keeps many surprises and I have to discover several. I do not plan to be left with any doubts. Peter. After Hermione went with Aslan, I walked to my tent along with my sisters, only they were going to theirs. Arriving at my tent, I find some species talking among themselves, but when one of them realizes that I was about to enter, he stops me and says, Sir, do you need something? He asks me and I look at him strangely. No, but I would appreciate if you would give me a few minutes in private, I said, and they nodded, walking in another direction. I went into my tent to lie down and reflect on what Aslan told me, but within seconds I fell asleep. The dream, a wedding, 5 thrones, magic, kisses, 2 boys, 3 girls, a castle, a room, wars, forests, 1 voice, 2 voices, 3 voices, thousands of voices. Goodbye. And, Hermione, I woke up to a noise. Someone entering the store, and I saw what I most wanted to see at this moment. Are you okay? Hermione asked me, noticing that I was breathing very fast. Yes, I just think it was a bad dream, I responded, smiling at him and pointing to the bed so he could sit down. She listened and told me, Are you going to tell me what you dreamed? She told me, still next to me. It's a little difficult to explain. It's strange, I said, looking into her eyes. Well, can you tell me just one of those things you saw? He said, looking away. A wedding, I said in a whisper, but apparently she heard perfectly. A wedding, he said, looking at me. I was going to answer, but she caught up to me and said, Interesting, can you believe it? That would be a great day. Now I'd like to know who was getting married, I finished saying. How the hell do I explain to her that she was the one dressed as a bride? Now the question would be, who was she going to marry? Peter, do you hear me? She said, breaking me out of my thoughts. Yes, I'm sorry, and in response to your old question, I would also like to know. So, what did Aslan tell you? I tried to divert the topic and I think it worked. Well, that's why I'm here, he said, this time looking me in the eyes. Well, I'm listening to you, I responded, smiling. Aslan said that we had to talk about our future, that is, the care of Narnia. I interrupted her to explain my plan. I think that when Edmund is with us, they will leave this place. I will stay here for a while, I said, and she looked at me sad. You know, They have to choose whether to stay or leave. He said this and I got angry. No, they have to go, I said, raising my voice, and she looked at me with disappointment. That made me calm down. She would be a weakness. I'm sure. You too. I finished saying this regretfully and got out of bed. I'm not leaving. I won't leave you alone, he said, getting up from the bed to walk towards me and look me in the eyes. At that moment we connected glances, and electricity was felt in. We were a few centimeters away. I was getting closer little by little until our lips connected and she let herself go. I believed that this girl would change something in my life, or rather, this girl would change my entire life. Edmund is back. ch.15. Pav. Edmund. The witch's army worked and works to create weapons, the witch and a giant explaining to the witch what his attack would be like in the war, and here I am, tied to a tree, with my mouth covered by a handkerchief. All the beasts were alarmed to see a wolf arriving running for its life, with centaurs, tigers, fawns, among other species behind it. They began to fight with Jadis's army, something that would be easy since none of them were prepared for the arrival of their enemies. The faithful dwarf witch, who was pointing some kind of dagger at me, was surprised by a centaur. He pointed a sword at him and untied me from the ropes that had me clinging to the tree and wrapped the dwarf where I was tied up. Then we all left the witch's refuge, and before we left completely I heard her say, "The prisoner," said a minotaur who was close to the witch, turning towards the place where he was tied before. Omniscient narrator. The witch got up from her seat when she noticed that Edmund was no longer there and began to walk through the shelter with a look of disappointment and revenge. Until she reached where the dwarf was tied to a tree. Jadis removed the dagger in the tree, now above the dwarf, with which previously he had pointed it at Edmund. The witch broke the ropes with which they tied the dwarf to the tree, causing him to fall to the ground. "Aren't you planning to kill me?" asked the nervous and scared dwarf. "Not yet," the witch said with a firm and angry tone. "We have something to do," the white witch snorted. Omniscient narrator. After what happened, everyone went to sleep in their tents. Hermione changed her clothes and lay down in what would be like her bed. She couldn't sleep for about 2 hours, thinking about her relationship with Peter. The next day, when the sun's rays fell completely in Narnia and there was not a single speck of snow left, Peter was leaving his tent, finding with Aureus, and that meant that Edmund was now safe, that the boy was now with his brothers and a new friend. Peter looked in the Sam E direction Aureus indicated and could see Edmund talking to Aslan. At that moment Susan, Lucy and Hermione came out of their tents with a smile, looking in the same direction that Peter was looking before. "Edmund," Lucy said, very excited to see her brother back. She was going to run towards him but Peter stopped her. Aslan finished speaking with Edmund, who began walking to reach his brothers. "What's done is done. It's not necessary to talk to Edmund about the past," Aslan said and then left. Edmund noticed his older brother's look of disappointment, trying to keep his gaze down with regret. "Hello." The little boy was sorry for everything he had caused, but his fear of rejection faded when he felt how Lucy gave some steps to hug him. Susan followed him. Hermione stroked his hair. Little and Peter stood with a serious look. "How do you feel?" Hermione asked with a small smile. "A little tired." Edmund tried to smile back but it came out more like a grimace. "Go to sleep," Peter told him. Still serious, or at least that was what he wanted to appear. Edmund walked a little. Hermione gave Peter a, "Come on, try something else and smile a little, look." Edmund stopped dead when he heard that Peter said his name. And Edmund, "Don't walk away anymore." Peter smiled, making Edmund smile too and making the girls feel good. "Good job, boy." Hermione put a supportive hand on his shoulder, with a smile. The two began to walk through that field, watching all the species at work. "Hey, thank you. I thought we should talk about our thing." Peter turned around to face her and look her in the eyes. "Yes, I was also thinking about that," Hermione responded, erasing her smile a little. The bonds of forgiveness. ch.16. Omniscient narrator. Peter breathed deeply, staring at Rmi1 with an intensity that made her hesitate between standing her ground or looking away. "Hermione, I want you to know that," Peter began, his voice serious, "that all of this, You here with us, is not something I take lightly. Hermione watched him closely, her mind working rapidly to anticipate what he was going to say. I don't know if this is the best time to talk about this, Peter, she said softly, trying to stay calm. But I understand that you need to say it. Peter nodded, his eyes not leaving hers. I don't know how to explain it, but you have changed something in me since you arrived. You've made me see things differently, to us, to this war, to myself. Hermione remained silent. Although part of her had anticipated something like this, hearing it directly was different. Peter, I also have many questions and doubts. But I don't think now is the time to find answers, she finally answered, with a slight smile. Peter nodded slowly, understanding her point. You're right, maybe we need time to think. Hermione nodded, relieved by the joint decision, although she knew that the issue was not completely closed. It was at that moment that Aureus came running towards them, with a grave expression. Peter, the witch is here, the centaur announced urgently. He has come to claim your brother. They both tensed up immediately. Peter clenched his fists as Hermione took a step towards him, ready for anything. Where is? Peter asked, his tone firm and determined. It's at the edge of the camp, Aureus answered. Aslan is already outside, waiting. Everyone has gathered in the tent. Peter nodded, looking at Hermione quickly before following Aureus towards the center of the camp. Omniscient narrator. In the heart of the camp, the air was thick with tension. The beasts, fawns and centaurs surrounded Aslan's tent, forming a protective barrier. Lucy, Susan and Edmund were already there, along with other army leaders. Aslan stood in front of everyone, his gaze fixed on the approaching figure, the White Witch. Escorted by a group of dark and menacing creatures, Peter and Hermione arrived just in time to join the group. Hermione could feel the tension in the air as Peter took position at the front. Next to Aslan. What do you want now? Peter asked quietly, keeping his eyes on Jadis. Aslan did not respond immediately, but his imposing posture conveyed calm and strength. He's come for Edmund, but he won't take anything that doesn't belong to him, he finally said, his voice echoing like thunder among those present. Hermione swallowed, knowing that the real battle was about to begin. The Lion's Bargain, ch. 17. Omniscient narrator. The silence was so dense that it seemed to envelop the entire camp. While Jadis, the White Witch, advanced with a malicious smile. His icy gaze fell on Edmund, who instinctively stepped back behind Peter and Hermione. I claim what is mine, Jadis announced, her voice ringing with authority as she pointed at the boy. Peter stepped forward, his sword ready. But before he could speak, Jadis interrupted him. His blood belongs to me, she continued, with a triumphant expression. He is a traitor, and ancient magic dictates that his life is the price of his betrayal. Or have you forgotten the scriptures, Aslan? Aslan, who had remained silent, raised his majestic head and looked her directly in the eyes. I was there when it was written, Jadis, Aslan answered. His voice deep and powerful, filled with a calm that hid incalculable strength. The comment shook the witch's confidence, although she quickly regained her composure. Then you know that ancient magic cannot be ignored. Edmund belongs to me, whether this animal army likes it or not, he said, his smile expanding cruelly. Aslan did not respond immediately. His gaze, solemn and thoughtful, swept over everyone present before returning to Jadis. We'll talk privately, he finally said, in a tone that brooked no argument. An uneasy murmur ran through the gathered creatures, but none dared to object. Aslan began walking towards the tent, closely followed by the witch. Hermione clenched her fists, feeling growing worry. Omniscient narrator. Inside the tent, the discussion was brief but intense. The witch listened attentively as Aslan offered his life in exchange for Edmund. Although she was skeptical at first, she soon accepted the deal, knowing that such a sacrifice would be enough to maintain the balance of the ancient magic. When they emerged, the witch's expression was a mixture of satisfaction and defiance. He stopped in front of Aslan and, with a tone full of mockery, asked, "And how will I know that you will do this, lion?" Aslan stared at her, and suddenly let out a roar so powerful that the ground seemed to tremble under his paws. The sound echoed throughout the camp, causing the witch to stumble and fall into a sitting position with a bang. The Narnians, Witnesses to the scene burst into cheers and celebrations. "Aslan has saved us," some shouted. "The witch has been defeated," said others, while the creatures danced and celebrated. Omniscient narrator. However, not everyone shared the euphoria. Lucy and Hermione, watching Aslan, noticed so. Nothing the others didn't. A deep sadness in his golden eyes. "Hermione," Lucy whispered, tugging on his sleeve. "I know, Lucy," Hermione answered quietly, looking at Aslan with concern. Something wasn't right, and they both knew it. Despite the general joy, they remained silent, sharing a disturbing premonition about what was to come. The silent sacrifice. Cap. 18. Omniscient narrator. Night fell on the Narnian camp, bringing with it a disturbing silence. The creatures rested in their tents, oblivious to the emotional storm that was brewing. However, not everyone was sleeping. Lucy and Susan, unable to fall asleep, were in their tent, murmuring under their breath. Hermione was sitting nearby, reading an old scroll, though her gaze kept drifting toward the entrance of the shop. "Do you think Aslan is fine?" Lucy asked in a whisper, hugging her knees. "Of course, Lucy. It's Aslan," Susan answered, although her voice betrayed a doubt she could not hide. Hermione closed the parchment gently and looked at the girls. "Aslan carries the weight of this war on his shoulders," he said quietly. "But it is stronger than we imagine." Lucy nodded, but didn't seem convinced. It was then that light movement in the distance caught his attention. Through the opening of the tent, he saw the imposing figure of Aslan walking away from the camp, his silent but firm steps. "It's Aslan," Lucy exclaimed, standing up. Susan and Hermione stood up immediately, following her out. "Lucy, wait," Susan said quietly, trying to stop her. But Lucy was already outside, determined to follow the great lion. Susan and Hermione exchanged a look before following her, their steps cautious so as not to alert the others. Omniscient narrator. In the distance, Aslan walked with a solemnity that seemed to echo in the night. The three girls followed him in silence, keeping to themselves. Far enough not to be seen, but close enough not to lose sight of it. Finally Aslan stopped in a clearing illuminated by pale moonlight. Without turning around, he spoke in a calm but firm voice. "I knew they would follow me." Lucy and Susan exchanged surprised glances before taking a step forward. "Aslan, where are you going?" Susan asked, her voice full of concern. "I'm going to keep my part of the deal," he replied, turning his head slightly towards them. Lucy ran towards him, hugging his mane tightly. "You can't leave us, we need you, Aslan," she said with tears in her eyes. Aslan bent his head to gently brush Lucy with his snout. "Daughters of Eve, this is not goodbye. But you must trust that what I do is for the good of Narnia." Susan pursed her lips, trying to hold back tears, as Hermione watched silently, her mind filled with questions. "Let me walk the rest of the way alone," Aslan requested softly. Lucy wanted to protest, but Susan took her hand, nodding slowly. "We will miss you, Aslan," Susan murmured, bowing her head in respect. Hermione took a step forward, her gaze steady. "You will return, I know, but if you don't, Narnia will not forget you." Aslan bowed his head in thanks before continuing on his way, disappearing into the darkness. Omniscient narrator. From the shadows, the girls watched as Aslan arrived at the stone table, where Jadis and her army were waiting for him. The scene that followed was heartbreaking. The great lion, the symbol of hope and strength, allowed himself to be hanged and humiliated without resistance. Lucy and Susan clung to each other, sobbing silently. Hermione, although she shed no tears, felt her heart break at the sight of the lion's sacrifice. The night continued in gloomy silence, and in the distance, the sound of Jadis's cruel laughter rang through the air. The lion's fall. Cap. 19. Omniscient narrator. The moon hung high in the sky, cold and distant, as if even nature refused to witness what was about to happen. On the stone table, Aslan was surrounded by Jadis's army. Minotaurs, harpies, wolves and other dark creatures watched with eyes hungry for violence. The great lion was silent, without opposing resistance, accepting his fate with a serenity that baffled his captors. Susan, Lucy and Hermione had hidden on the nearby hillside, watching with their hearts in their hearts. Jadis slowly approached Aslan, a cruel smile on her face. "Look at this," he mocked, looking over his army. Isn't it a beautiful image? The great Aslan, the supposed savior of Narnia, reduced to nothing more than a frightened cat. The creatures burst into mocking laughter. Jadis snapped her fingers, and 2 minotaurs advanced with sharp knives. If it's a simple animal, let it look like one, the witch ordered. Susan and Lucy put their hands over their mouths to hold back their sobs. Hermione clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. He creatures began to tear out Aslan's mane mercilessly, lock by lock. They threw her to the ground, laughing as they did so. Look, he doesn't defend himself. A harpy shouted. Have you already accepted your defeat? A werewolf mocked. Jadis leaned over him, holding a fistful of his hair between her fingers. Wow, what a shame. It looks a lot less majestic like this, she whispered, letting her hair fall to the floor. Aslan did not react. His gaze was still calm, filled with something that not even the witch could understand. Hermione felt a shiver run down her spine. I knew something wasn't right, but there was nothing I could do. Tie him to the table, Jadis ordered. The Minotaurs and their strongest soldiers held him down with thick ropes, securing his legs and body to the stone. Jadis raised the dagger, its blade glinting in the moonlight. Tonight, Narnia belongs to us. The power of the lion is dead. The creatures roared with joy. The witch raised her dagger and, with a precise movement, stabbed it into Aslan's chest. The world seemed to stop. Susan let out a choked sob. Lucy covered her face with both hands, and Hermione felt a lump in her throat. Aslan breathed his last in silence. Jadis's cruel laugh echoed through the night. Now there is no one who can stop us. The creatures celebrated, their laughter and screams filling the air as they began to leave, leaving Aslan's body on the cold stone. As the last beast disappeared into the darkness, Susan, Lucy and Hermione emerged from their hiding place and ran towards the table. No, no, Lucy whispered, caressing the lion's face, tears falling uncontrollably. Susan knelt next to her, unable to contain her tears. Hermione put one hand on the table and closed her eyes. The great Aslan was gone. For now. The great magic cap. 20. Omniscient narrator. The night was slowly fading, giving way to the first orange tones of dawn. Susan and Lucy were still lying on Aslan's motionless body, their faces still wet from crying. Hermione, sitting a few steps away from them, kept her arms crossed on her knees, staring at the sky with a lost gaze. The air was cold and silent, broken only by the sound of the wind and the occasional sobs of the Pevensie sisters. We should go now, Susan whispered, although she made no effort to move. Lucy shook her head gently. We can't leave him here. Hermione sighed and looked away at the stone table. It was unfair. Everything Aslan had done, everything he had sacrificed, and now he lay there, lifeless. But then, a noise made them startle. A crunch, deep and shocking. Hermione stood up immediately. Did you hear that? Susan and Lucy joined in as well. Another crunch. Then suddenly, a roar echoed throughout the hill. The stone table split in two with a piercing sound. The three girls screamed and stepped back, staring at the broken fragments in amazement. The wind blew hard, stirring up dust and the echo of ancient magic that still vibrated in the air. And then, out of the dawn light, he appeared. Aslan was there. Hermione felt her breath catch. Susan and Lucy blinked in disbelief. No, it can't be, Susan whispered. But Lucy didn't hesitate for a second. Aslan. The girl ran towards him and clung to his hair as if she was afraid he would disappear again. Susan followed immediately, hugging the lion's neck with all her might. Hermione took a little longer to react. But you were dead, he managed to say, his voice shaking. Aslan bowed his head with a soft smile. Yes, but not forever. Susan looked at him in disbelief. What does this mean? Aslan took a breath and responded calmly. The witch knew deep magic, but there is an even deeper magic. Old that she doesn't understand. If an innocent victim surrenders in place of a traitor, the stone table will break, and death will recede. Hermione felt a chill. Aslan had known this all along. He had walked towards his death with the certainty that he would return. Susan and Lucy smiled with relief, feeling hope rekindle in their hearts. Aslan moved slightly away from them and shook himself vigorously, as if he had just woken from a long sleep. Now, there is an army that we must stop. The roar that came from his throat shook the entire hill, echoing loudly in the distance. Hermione felt her heart pounding. The battle was not over yet. But now, they had a real chance to win. Omniscient narrator. The sun was beginning to fully rise over Narnia, bathing the hill in a warm golden light. Aslan, now alive, stood majestically beside the stone table destroyed. Beside him, Susan, Lucy and Hermione watched in amazement as the first signs of hope returned to their world. Aslan turned to them with a steady gleam in his eyes. "We have a lot to do," he said in a deep but calm voice. "And little time to do it." "Where are we going?" Lucy asked, taking a step towards him. Aslan lowered his gaze, and his tone became more serious. "To free those who have been turned into stone. They will fight for Narnia." Susan nodded, understanding immediately. Hermione, on the other hand, was silent for a few seconds. "And us?" he asked with a slight frown. "Shall we go with you?" Aslan looked at her with a different, more personal expression. He approached her, with the gravity of someone who was about to confide in her something important. "Not you," he said softly. "You must return to camp. Peter needs you." Hermione narrowed her eyes, confused. "Peter, the battle has begun," stated the lion. "He leads our army, but his heart is divided. He needs your clarity, your courage. You are as much a part of this war as he is." Hermione swallowed. He didn't know why, but he felt the knot in his chest tighten. "I had wanted to be useful, to be part of the change, but not like this. Not leaving Aslan, not leaving Lucy and Susan. What if I'm late?" he asked almost in a whisper. "You'll be just in time," Aslan assured him with a half smile. "Now run." Hermione nodded, tears forming in her eyes. He approached Lucy and hugged her briefly. "See you soon, okay? Go." "Hermione," Lucy said, smiling. "Take care of them." Hermione took a deep breath, then ran down the hill, toward the battlefields. His boots hit the wet earth hard, his cloak billowing in the wind. She didn't know exactly what awaited her, but I knew Peter was there. And she had to be too. Meanwhile, Aslan turned his gaze to the opposite hillside, where the White Witch's castle stood. Wasting no time, he and the Pevensie sisters set off on their next mission. The war for Narnia continued, and everyone was playing their part. Clear. Let's continue with the chapter and add Hermione's paw. As he approaches the battlefield, following the film's narrative. Hermione's paw. I ran as fast as I could, without stopping for a single moment. The fresh air hit my face, and my thoughts mixed with the urgency of the mission. Aslan had been clear. Peter needed me. But how could this be? How could I be the missing piece when all of Narnia was at stake? The sound of my boot's hitting the ground seemed like the only noise in the vast landscape. As I ran, a part of me wished I wasn't so far from Aslan and the girls. But the other knew she couldn't hesitate. There was no time. The horizon began to fill with dark clouds, and the distant roar of battle reached my ears. I could feel the tension in the air, something palpable, something that told you something big was about to happen. Finally, I reached the top of a hill and could see the entire battlefield. The White Witch's troops lined up in a sea of darkness and despair, while our own armies were organizing to meet them. At the back, near the first line, combat, I saw the figure of Peter. There was no doubt, it was him. But something about his posture worried me. He looked more tense than ever, as if the weight of the war was falling solely on him. I walked even closer, my steps slower now. My heart was pounding, and I could hear the branches crunching under my feet. I saw that some of the Narnians were already fighting. But what caught my attention the most was how Peter directed every move. He was not only the leader of the army. He was there, at the front, fighting side by side with them. And in his eyes there was a fierce determination. As if he was willing to give everything for Narnia. But I could also see something else. Something I had never seen before. Doubt. I ran towards him without thinking. As I got closer, the White Witch's forces began to retreat. I wasn't sure how it happened, but it seemed like the wind was in our favor, as if the land itself was fighting for us. When I finally reached him, I saw him turn around. Sword in hand, soaked in sweat and blood. "Hermione," he said, his voice hoarse, looking me up and down, as if he couldn't believe I was here. I wanted to hug him. Tell him that everything would be okay, but I couldn't. There was something bigger that needed to be said. Something else that was in the air. "How are you?" I asked with a lump in my throat. Peter shook his head, his expression sterner than ever. "I don't know how we are, Hermione. I don't know if we can win this battle. I've wasted too much time, I've failed at so many things." "You haven't failed, Peter," I interrupted. Getting closer to him, he knew that what he needed most now was someone to believe him. Someone who believed in him. Suddenly, a roar echoed across the field, a deep roar that vibrated to my bones. It was Aslan. The lion was there, nearby, and his roar seemed to put hope in our hearts, a reminder that all was not lost. Peter closed his eyes for a moment, as if drawing strength from the sound. From Aslan's very presence. When he opened his eyes, something changed in him. His expression was no longer one of despair, but of resolve. "We're going to win this," he said with renewed determination. And at that moment, it didn't matter how big the battle was. It didn't matter that we were surrounded by darkness. The only thing what mattered was that we were together. Narnia and its creatures, us, all united in a fight for freedom. The battlefield erupted into chaos around us. The sound of clashing swords, the screams of the Narnians and the witches' beasts. They filled the air, but it didn't matter, because at that moment, I knew we were all fighting for something bigger than ourselves. And I, at his side, was ready to fight. Omniscient narrator. The battle in Narnia continued in all its fury. Enemies swarmed and the fate of the entire kingdom hung in the balance. But Aslan had given the first roar, and that gave them strength. Now, more than ever, the Narnians knew that hope was not lost. The war continued, but with new brave hearts willing to fight until the last breath. The heart of the fight. Cap.22. Pav. Peter. The field was chaos. Claws, swords, roars. The sky was covered with black clouds that threatened to fall on us, but the only thing that mattered was the here and now. Narnia, its people, my people. I couldn't think. I could only move, block, attack, protect. On either side, creatures fought with everything they had. I saw how a centaur fell protecting a fawn. I heard the cry of a dryad while he was facing a minotaur twice his size. But among that hell, I saw Hermione. His hair tousled by the wind, clothes stained with dust and blood, and a determined look that took my breath away. I wasn't watching from afar. She was not a queen waiting safely in the rear. He was with me, at my side, with wand and sword in hand. "Peter," he shouted, casting a spell that hit the chest of an ogre that was coming straight towards me. "Thank you," I responded, turning and stabbing my sword into the leg of a minotaur that surrounded me. Hermione finished the job with a precise cut from her short sword, straight to the neck. His aim was impeccable. We had fought before, but not like this. This was different. This time, it wasn't just about winning. It was about survival. To keep hope alive, I saw Edmund in the distance, bravely defending a pair of small rodent warriors. Susan shot arrows with deadly precision. Lucy, he healed the wounded with his potion. We were all doing the impossible. And then, I saw her. Jadis, on the other side of the field, freezing everything in its path. His white hair waved like a death flag, and on his face there was no fury, there was no fear. Only a sick satisfaction, as if this war had already been won. I tensed. I was going towards her. I had to face her. There was no other option. But before I took the first step, I felt Hermione's hand on my arm. "You're not going alone," she said, with a firmness that kept me on my feet. "Not today, nor ever." Our eyes met. For a second, the noise faded. In the middle of a war, she was my point of calm. I nodded. "Then let's go," I told him. We ran together. We dodged attacks, blocked blows, helped lift those who fell. Hermione used spells quickly, freezing legs, disarming enemies. I made way with my sword, until we were in front of her. Jadis turned. He smiled, a smile full of contempt. "The great King Peter, and his little witch," he said in an icy voice. Hermione raised her wand. I raised my sword, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. The fall of winter. Cap.23. Omniscient narrator. The battle had reached its climax. Jadis stood with her ice staff, her gaze alight with rage and power. In front of her, Peter held his sword, panting, covered in wounds and sweat. Beside him, Hermione stood firm, wand raised, ignoring the tremor in her hands and the fear that threatened to consume her. "Did you think you could beat me, kid?" The witch spat. "You are not a king. You're just a kid playing war." Peter gripped the hilt of his sword tightly. "I may be a child, but I am not alone." At that moment, a roar shook the field. The clouds parted. The air changed. Aslan. His golden silhouette crossed the battlefield like a promise. Her hair shone with the sunlight that was rising again, and her eyes were fixed on the witch. The Narnian soldiers shouted. Many of Jadis's enemies began to flee at the sight of the lion. Others were paralyzed by fear. Jadis took a step back. "No, you're dead," he murmured, for the first time, with a spark of doubt. "Death works differently when it is for love," Aslan roared. With a majestic leap, he lunged at the witch. She tried to defend herself with her wand, but it was too late. Peter ran after, while Hermione cast a spell that broke the ice under the feet of the enemy soldiers. The battle turned upside down. The Narnians fought back with renewed hope. The skies were clearing. The sun was beginning to melt the snow. In the midst of the chaos, Edmund watched as Jadis fell to the ground, struggling with Aslan. Without thinking, he grabbed a fallen spear and ran straight towards it, ignoring Peter's shout. "Edmund, no, get away!" But Edmund was already there. His blow was accurate, but Jadis still retained some of her magic. In a last attempt, he raised his hand and launched an ice attack that pierced part of his side. Hermione screamed. Susan shot an arrow. And finally, with a final roar, Aslan shattered the White Witch's staff and knocked her down. His body remained motionless, frozen like his soul, and the war ended in an instant. Silence covered the field. Only the wind could be heard, and the footsteps of the brothers and Hermione running towards Edmund. Peter knelt next to him. "I told you to stay away," he murmured with a trembling voice. "I just wanted to help," Edmund whispered, breathlessly. Hermione took his hand. Lucy was already there, with the small bottle of potion. He poured a drop onto the wound, which slowly began to close. Narnia's heart was beating again. The witch had fallen, and although the victory was costly, the dawn of a new kingdom was dawning. Omniscient narrator. The snow began to melt rapidly. The sun's rays bathed the battlefield, as if Narnia itself was breathing a sigh of relief. The swords were lowered, the beasts began to celebrate, and the Bodhi swounded and fallen were collected with respect and care. Peter watched silently. His sword was still stained with blood, and his muscles ached like never before. But finally, it was all over. Hermione was a few meters away, helping to heal the wounded with Lucy. Edmund was resting in a makeshift tent, his wound healing thanks to Lucy's cordiality and the power that the potion still held. Aslan walked among them. His presence was imposing, but calm. With each step, the creatures bowed in respect. When he stopped in front of the Pevensie siblings and Hermione, everyone fell silent. "They have shown great courage," he said in a deep voice. "The battle is over, and Narnia is free once more." Peter looked up. "And now what?" Aslan looked at him with a mixture of pride and affection. "Now they rest. In 2 days we will leave for Cair Paravel, where they will receive what they deserve. This kingdom needs kings, and one more queen." Hermione looked up, surprised. But Aslan only gave him a calm smile before continuing walking. The creatures celebrated, danced, ate. The centaurs raised their spears in honor of victory. The fauns played soft music with their flutes, and some children who had been freed from the enchantments were running between the tents. Peter walked over to Hermione and sat down next to her. They both looked at the sunset, without needing words. The war was over, but a new stage was about to begin. After the storm, Cap. 24. Omniscient narrator. The sun's rays bathed the battlefield, as if Narnia itself was breathing a sigh of relief. The swords were lowered, the beasts began to celebrate, and the Bodhi swounded and fallen were collected with respect and care. Peter watched silently. His sword was still stained with blood, and his muscles ached like never before. But finally, it was all over. Hermione was a few meters away, helping to heal the wounded with Lucy. Edmund was resting in a makeshift tent, his wound healing thanks to Lucis Cordia. Liddy and the power that the potion still held. Aslan walked among them. His presence was imposing, but calm. With each step, the creatures bowed in respect. When he stopped in front of the Pevensie siblings and Hermione, Everyone fell silent. They have shown great courage, he said in a deep voice. The battle is over, and Narnia is free once more. Peter looked up. And now what? The boy said with an exhausted voice. Aslan looked at him with a mixture of pride and affection. Now rest. In 2 days we will leave for Cair Paravel, where they will receive what they deserve. This kingdom needs 2 kings and 2 queens. And 1 more queen. Hermione looked up, surprised, since in her mind only, "You're just a sorceress," existed. But Aslan only gave him a calm smile before continuing walking. After a few hours, when night arrived and everyone was more relaxed, they approached the bonfire, made by some fauns. The creatures celebrated, danced and ate. The centaurs raised their spears in honor of victory. The fauns played soft music with their flutes, and some creatures that had been freed from the enchantments were running among the tents. Peter walked over to Hermione and sat down next to her. They both looked at the sunset. Without needing words, the war was over, but a new stage was about to begin. The road to Cair Paravel, Cap.25. Pav. Peter Pavensi. The sun had barely begun to rise when Aslan asked us to. We would be ready. Although our bodies were still somewhat sore, the atmosphere was different, lighter. There was laughter, happy murmurs, and for the first time in a long time, hope. We walked together, leaving the battlefield behind. I was in the front, next to Hermione, while Susan and Lucy were chatting animatedly a few steps behind, and Edmund, well, he pretended not to be tired although we saw him limp a little from time to time. Hermione watched over him as if he were her own brother. Are you always this protective, or is it because of the title of Great King? Hermione told me, looking at me out of the corner of her eye as we walked. I smiled, feeling like I could finally breathe easy. A little of both, I replied, shrugging my shoulders. Although with you, I don't know if I have to protect you or you me. Probably both, she said, nudging me with her shoulder. I wasn't expecting it, so I almost lost my balance. Hermione started to laugh, that laugh of hers that I still can't understand why it affects me so much. Later, Edmund was trying to impress some forest creatures by telling them about his deed during the battle. Have you already told them? The part where you disobeyed a direct order from me? I yelled at him. I was improvising, he responded, raising his arms dramatically. Lucy laughed while Susan rolled her eyes. Yes, improvising an injury that almost cost you your life. Susan said, amused. Next time I'll stay and have tea with the fauns, then, Edmund grumbled. And you would let that happen? Hermione asked me quietly, with a serious tone. Not in a million years. I told him, and he meant it. The landscape changed as we moved forward. The trees no longer seemed to be covered in dark magic, the sky was bluer, and even the wind. It seemed fresh. There was peace in Narnia. And that was also felt within me. We passed rivers, green hills, and small towns whose inhabitants came out to greet us with amazement and joy. Some even bowed. Is this real? Hermione asked me when a faunus offered her a crown of flowers. Sometimes I wonder that too, I replied. That night, we camped under a sky full of stars. Lucy and Susan sang softly near the fire, while Edmund played shadow guessing with a talking badger. Hermione sat next to me as we watched the campfire. No, I didn't imagine I'd feel this way after all this, I told him. As? He asked, in a soft voice. Happy. She rested her head briefly on my shoulder, just for a second. And in that moment, I understood something. It didn't matter what came, or what fate had planned. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. A place to call home. Cap.26. Pav. Hermione Granger. The sun was high as the horns blared from the highest towers of Cair Paravel. The sound was glorious, hopeful. I felt a lump in my throat. We had achieved it. The war was over, and now, we were walking towards a new home. The doors opened as if they had been waiting for us forever, and a tide of magical creatures filled the path before us. Led to the castle, fauns, centaurs, dwarves, naiads, dryads, everyone applauded, some sang, others cried with emotion. I felt a little dizzy. How had we gotten to this? Peter walked in front with Aslan, and we all followed. I stopped for a second and looked at the castle. Tall, splendid, with towers that touched the sky and red flags with a golden lion waving proudly. Cair Paravel was much more majestic than I had imagined. It wasn't just a fortress. It was a symbol of hope. As we entered the gates, the castle servants, sylphs and magical creatures of the air courteously guided us to our seats. Rooms. Edmund was at his pace, still recovering. Lucy looked like she was about to explode with happiness. Susan took my arm. Do you want to tour the castle with me? Lucy wants to see if there is a stable. And a library, Lucy added, enthusiastically. I couldn't refuse. So, instead of going to my room, we got lost in the ancient marble and stone hallways, decorated with stained glass windows that told stories, our history and creatures I only knew from storybooks. This place is huge, I said, turning slowly in the middle of a circular hallway full of golden arches. And beautiful, Susan whispered, touching a wall adorned with a tapestry of silver threads. Lucy ran ahead and opened a large carved wooden door. On the other side, there was a glass greenhouse. Flowers of all colors grew without restriction, and a small stream ran through the center. It was like a dream. We sat there for a while, just watching. For a moment, no. We were girls who had been in a war. It was just us. Do you think we deserve it? Susan asked suddenly. After everything we've done, yes, I answered honestly. Lucy smiled, lying down on the grass. I want to stay here forever. I didn't answer him, but a part of me wanted it too. Although something deep down reminded me that the time in Narnia was not always like the world we come from. I looked out a window towards the sea. From here, the horizon seemed infinite. I wondered what Peter was doing at that moment, although if I knew him well, he was probably making sure everything was in order for the others. That thought made me smile. Before the crown's cap. 27. Pav. Omniscient narrator. That afternoon, with the golden rays of the sun falling on the balconies of Cair Paravel, the castle shone as if it were part of the sea. Everyone had had time to bathe, dress in soft, clean clothes, and relax after the long journey and the war. The atmosphere was no longer charged with tension, but with a new calm, excitement and curiosity. In one of the main rooms, a large room with windows overlooking the gardens, some non-speaking birds, and tables decorated with fruit and jugs of nectar, the Pevensie siblings, Hermione, and some creatures close to the royal family had gathered. They sat on comfortable cushions and talked animatedly about what Aslan had told them that morning. The coronation would be the next day. Coronation, said Edmund, half incredulous. Us, kings. Looks like it, Susan laughed, sipping from a cut crystal goblet. And you, Lucy, what kind of queen would you like to be? Hermione asked with a smile. One who always has adventures, Lucy replied enthusiastically. And that everyone can always eat ice cream. They all laughed. Peter, sitting next to Hermione, wasn't saying much. He looked around with a half smile. But there was something in his eyes that only Hermione seemed to notice. She, for her part, pretended to be focused on the conversation, but her eyes kept returning to Peter. The looks were constant, small, hidden, but intense, as if a silent conversation was taking place between them that the rest of the world couldn't hear. A few minutes passed, until Peter discreetly leaned towards her. Do you want to go out for a moment? Hermione just nodded, setting her glass down. They stood up naturally and, without anyone saying anything, they left the room amid other people's laughter. They walked quickly through the corridors until they left through a side door of the castle. The afternoon air was cool, scented with sea breezes. They walked barefoot along a stone path until they reached Cair Paravel beach, where gentle waves kissed the golden sand. The sun was beginning to set, dyeing the sky orange and pink tones. Peter stopped and looked at the horizon. All this, I still have a hard time believing it, he murmured. Hermione looked at him calmly. You did well, Peter. Everyone knows it. Aslan knows it. And you were always by my side. Even when he doubted me. Because I always knew what you have inside. He said it without thinking too much about it, as if it were obvious. Peter turned to her. The wind played with her hair and his. Their gazes met again, but this time, neither of them looked away. They walked a little further, saying nothing, until Peter stopped completely and held her hand. Hermione, I don't know if this is a dream or madness. But I know that you are the part of Narnia that I would most like to preserve. Hermione looked at him softly, her fingers intertwined with his. Then keep me with you, he whispered. Peter didn't respond with words. He approached and kissed her. It was a slow, sincere kiss. He was not impetuous as in the stories of war or overflowing passion. It was a kiss of peace, from two souls that, between battles and promises, had found each other. The sound of the waves around them was the only thing that accompanied them. And when they separated, their foreheads touched, sharing the same breath. As if that moment were just for them. The Kings and Queens of Narnia, ch. 28. Pav. Omniscient narrator. The next day the sun rose gloriously over Cair Paravel. Golden light flooded every corner of the castle, making the marble towers shine as if they were made of light. The creatures of Narnia had gathered since dawn. These occupied the chairs or stood in front of the thrones. All of Narnia stopped that day to honor those who had helped them. Not far from that room, in a large room decorated with linen curtains and sculpted columns, Peter, Edmund, Susan, Lucy and Hermione were getting ready. Susan was helping Lucy adjust the sash across her dress, while Hermione fixed Peter's cloak with trembling hands, without looking directly at him. He watched her from the reflection of an antique mirror. "Are you ready to see how you become history?" Peter whispered with a half-smile. Hermione returned a soft look, pursing her lips. "Only if you are also ready for everyone to call you, Your Majesty." "Don't get used to that, okay?" They both laughed, nervous, although deep down they knew that that moment would be recorded forever. The golden doors opened. Aslan's distant roar echoed like trumpets. When they were walking towards the throne room, down a hallway with a long red carpet, where everyone was waiting for them, the Narnian music, performed by fauns and winged creatures, began to fill the air. Aslan waited at the end. Firm, majestic, imposing, with eyes full of pride and wisdom. And everyone, at the same time when the doors opened, approached. The room full of cheers and joy for tea. Creatures surrounded the boys as they walked towards the thrones where Aslan would crown them. Aslan said some words of thanks and welcome, and then finally continued with what was most expected, although everyone loved Aslan's words. First Lucy, crowned with a delicate tiara among her beautiful curls, knelt with delicacy and elegance. "Queen Lucy the Brave," Aslan proclaimed in a deep voice. Susan was next, receiving an elegant tiara and a blue cape that, trailing behind her, she knelt delicately just like her little sister. Queen Susan the Benevolent. Edmund, with a calm and more mature look than that of the child he had betrayed, knelt without hesitation. Rey Edmund el Justo. Then Peter, who paused for a second before crouching before Aslan. His eyes met the lion's, and in silence, something was said without words. King Peter the Magnificent. Finalmente, Hermione. Everyone knew that she deserved to be there, because she was already like the second heart of Narnia. Con gracia, se inclino. Aslan looked at her tenderly and solemnly. Lady Hermione, guardian of knowledge and courage. Heroina de Narnia. They placed a simpler crown on him, woven with golden leaves and stones from the Baruna River, a symbol of wisdom, compassion and courage. A roar broke out from Aslan, and all the creatures of Narnia responded with cheers, singing, and joy. The five turned towards the town, already crowned. They sat on their ivory thrones, the Pevensie brothers reigning together. Hermione, she remained at Peter's side, not as queen, but as an ally, companion, and something more. The sea glistened behind them. The flags of Narnia were flying. The castle bells echoed throughout the valley. And so, the golden age of Narnia began. Aslan, from the top of a nearby hill, watched everything in silence, and, although no one else noticed, a tear ran down his lion's cheek. Because I knew what was coming. I knew that this moment, like everything in life, would last forever. But for now, there was peace. And that was enough. Golden years. Narrador omniscient. Many years had passed since the Great War, so many that the little kings were no longer little. The snow had long since completely melted. The trees had blossomed thousands of times, and Aslan's roar remained a sacred echo among the valleys of Narnia. At Cair Paravel, greatness was breathed in every stone. The four kings and queens, Peter the Magnificent, Susan the Benevolent, Edmund the Just, and Lucy the Brave, had become living legends. At his side, an equally respected figure walked steadily, Hermione Granger, known in Narnia as the Lady of Spells and the Sword. The portraits in the royal halls showed them young and brave, but now their faces had matured with wisdom. Their crowns shone more for what they represented than for the gold they were made of. That morning, Peter and Hermione were walking through the gardens of Cair Paravel, now filled with cherry blossoms. The tranquility was as gentle as the wind. "Do you remember when we came for the first time?" Peter asked, with a wistful smile. "I remember everything," Hermione answered, with a serene look. "You were so serious, so, king. Although you didn't know how to wear a crown without it falling off." Peter laughed. "And you were a girl from another world who would not shut up even under the threat of a large army." "Nor would I now," she said, with a proud smile. They stood in silence, watching Edmund teach fencing to the young centaurs, Lucy talking to the beaver lords, and Susan organizing a council with representatives of all magical creatures. Everyone had found their place. But they did not forget who they were or where they came from. That afternoon, the kings and queens gathered in the great hall. At your feet, hundreds of Narnians cheered and celebrated the Solstice Festival, the festival that commemorated the victory over the witch and the arrival of lasting peace. "This is beautiful," Susan said, coming to Hermione's side, who was wearing a beautiful pastel pink dress. Hermione smiled at him and let out a small sigh of satisfaction and looked at everyone present. "Yes, it's like a dream," he said happily. Susan with a small smile. Gave him a hug and left with her younger sister Lucy. Hermione looked through one of the stained glass windows and could notice the dark night, the forest full of mist, and decided to go out. While walking through the forest she noticed a shadow, but not a dark one. She was sure who it could be. Aslan. He didn't speak. I didn't need it. He just looked at her with those golden eyes that said more than any words. "Aslan?" Hermione asked, with some concern and expecting some bad news. "Very soon, my dear little one, you will no longer be in this world." Hermione quickly understood that Aslan I didn't mean that they would die or anything like that, he meant that they had to return to their worlds. Hermione whispered, "Really?" with a very low voice and a lost look. Aslan nodded slowly. She didn't cry. He smiled. He knew that nothing on Aslan's part would be evil. On the contrary, if they had to leave it was for their own good. The next day the five went hunting, following the rumor of a mystical white deer that, according to legends, could grant wishes. They laughed, they rode, and they got lost in the depths of the forest, as if they were children again. For a moment Edmund, now a man, stopped because his horse was tired and a little old to ride so much. Lucy, Susan, Peter and Hermione stopped as well, to wait for Edmund. Lucy and Susan made fun of the brunette and Hermione and Peter only gave each other a few happy glances, but deep down Hermione felt pain. Lucy got off her horse and could see an old lantern, but it looked like new. The others did the same as the youngest, now an adult. They dismounted from their horses and approached the lantern with Lucy. They looked at it and from one moment to the next something occurred to the littlest one, and began to run between many trees and narrow branches. The others followed her, reproaching her and asking her to come back until they began to clash with coats, but from one moment to the next Hermione was no longer with the Pevensie brothers. She was in the closet where she had entered that time. And so, in that instant, Narnia breathed one last breath of the air of the Golden Age, knowing that its kings and queen, and the strong lady from another world, were gone. The legend would never die. The magic would never go away. And Aslan's roar would always be with them. The end and the beginning, ch. 30 end. Hermione. The creak of wood was the first thing I felt. I fell to my knees on the closet floor, my hands touching the floor of the closet. Wood and the sensation of cold disappeared suddenly. When I got up with effort, left the closet and found myself back in the shoe store, at exactly the same point where it had all started. But it wasn't the same. My heart beat with a different, heavier rhythm, as if 1,000 memories were pressing me from within. My gaze slid around the store, silent and full of people who didn't even notice my return. Everything was the same, but nothing was the same. Hermione. The voice took me out of the trance. Ellie came running from the store, agitated and clearly worried. "Where the hell have you been? I lost sight of you for just a second, you scared the hell out of me." I blinked. I wanted to talk to him, explain to him, tell him that I was in a magical world, that I met a lion who spoke and a king who who stole my heart. But when I tried to speak, my lips only trembled. I got lost, was the only thing I said, with my voice barely audible. Ellie frowned, noticing my expression, while my eyes were glassy, as if I had just lived a story that no one else could understand. "Are you okay?" he asked, lowering his tone. "You look sad." I looked down, and a tear fell silently down my cheek. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I just need a moment." Ellie, although confused, said nothing more. He approached and gently took my hand. "I promise I won't drag you to another store without your permission again," he teased softly. I let out a light laugh, dry, but real. The two of us started walking away from the store in silence. The sun was still shining. The people kept walking. Everyone turned around as if nothing had happened. I looked back and the closet was gone. And yet, in my heart, Narnia lived. My heart still lives in the snowy mountains, in the golden halls of Cair Paravel. In shared laughter, in the battles fought, and above all, in the eyes of a young king with whom I shared something more than a fairy tale. Because even if the wardrobe was no longer open, Narnia would never completely abandon me, or so I thought.